The aroma of roasted chicken filled the kitchen as Olivia set the table, carefully placing each plate and utensil in its proper place. She had always taken pride in creating a warm and loving home for her family. But tonight, as she reached for her phone to check a message, the illusion of that perfect life shattered in an instant. "She needs our support. I'm moving in with her. I've already emptied our joint account. Haha." Her fingers trembled slightly as she reread the message, her eyes scanning the words over and over again, trying to make sense of what was happening. But before she could even process the betrayal, another message arrived. "She's pregnant, Olivia. We have to be there for her. I know this is a lot to take in, but we can be adults about this." Her chest tightened as she inhaled deeply, steadying herself. Pregnant? The words felt like a knife twisting in her gut. But it wasn't just that her husband, David, had been unfaithful. It was who he had betrayed her with. Her own younger sister, Emma. For years, Olivia had been more of a mother to Emma than a sister. After their parents passed away when Emma was just a teenager, Olivia had stepped up, supporting her emotionally and financially, making sure she had everything she needed. And now, Emma had taken the one thing Olivia had built her life around, her marriage. But Olivia didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't crumble. Instead, she placed her phone down, took a slow, deliberate breath, and finished setting the table. She could hear her son Noah humming a song in the background as he played with his toys in the living room, completely unaware that his world had just changed forever. Instead of reacting on impulse, Olivia did something far more powerful. She remained calm. She picked up her phone and typed a single response. "Congratulations." No anger. No heartbreak. No desperation. Just that one word. David probably expected an explosion, a barrage of furious texts, screaming phone calls, or even a desperate plea to reconsider. But Olivia had already been preparing for this moment. She had seen the signs months ago, and instead of confronting him, she had been quietly working behind the scenes. 3 months earlier, she had found a receipt tucked into David's coat pocket. A hotel charge from a night when he had told her he was working late. At first, she had told herself it was a mistake. Maybe he had taken a colleague out for drinks or attended a work event. But then, other things started adding up. The secretive phone calls, the sudden interest in helping Emma with errands, the unexplained charges on their joint credit card, flowers, expensive dinners, and gifts that Olivia had never received. So she had made her own plans. She had started by securing her finances, slowly transferring money from their shared account into a private one only in her name. She had met with a lawyer, gathering legal advice on how to protect herself and her son. And most importantly, she had ensured that the house, her house, was legally untouchable. David thought he had won, that he had taken everything from her. But he had no idea that the real power had never been in his hands. That night, after putting Noah to bed, Olivia poured herself a glass of wine. It was the expensive bottle David had been saving for a special occasion. She figured this moment was special enough. As she swirled the wine in her glass, savoring the rich aroma, her phone buzzed again. "I know this is hard for you, but Emma was scared. It just happened. We never meant for it to go this far. Please don't make this ugly." She actually laughed out loud. Ugly? He thought she was the one making this ugly. She took another slow sip of wine and forwarded the message to her lawyer. Then she picked up her phone and typed another response. "I understand. You're right. She needs your support. Take care of her." She hit send and waited. Waited for the moment David would realize the trap he had just walked into. Because while he was basking in the excitement of his so-called new life, he had no idea that by the time he finally understood the full extent of what he had done, it would already be too late. The morning sun streamed through the curtains, casting a soft glow over the kitchen as Olivia packed Noah's lunch. The routine felt the same, yet everything had changed. She had barely slept, but not because of grief, because of strategy. "Where's Dad?" Noah asked, rubbing his sleepy eyes as he sat at the table. Olivia smiled gently, keeping her voice steady. "He's helping Aunt Emma with something." It wasn't a lie. David was with Emma. He just didn't realize yet that his life as he knew it was unraveling. She handed Noah his backpack and kissed his forehead before sending him off to school. The second the door closed behind him, she picked up her phone and dialed the number she had saved weeks ago. "It's time." Her lawyer didn't hesitate. I'll file the paperwork today. And the accounts? Freeze them. Every single one. David had already drained their joint bank account, thinking he had left her with nothing. But what he didn't realize was that Olivia had been one step ahead. The real savings, the emergency fund, the investments, even the backup accounts, had all been moved under her name before he had even thought about betraying her. Her next call was to a locksmith. By noon, the locks on the house were changed. David might have believed he still had a claim to the home, but the truth was, he had never been on the deed. Olivia had bought the house before they were married, and despite his attempts over the years to convince her to add his name, she had always pushed it off. Now, that decision had saved her. By mid-afternoon, she was sitting in her lawyer's office, reviewing the final draft of her divorce petition. Adultery, her lawyer said, nodding at the paperwork. You're filing under adultery, which gives you a strong case, and since he abandoned the marital home, you have the advantage. Olivia nodded, gripping the pen in her hand. There was no hesitation, no second thoughts, just clarity. She signed. David had made his choice. Now he would live with the consequences. Later that afternoon, Olivia's phone buzzed. It was Emma. She stared at the screen for a moment before answering. Olivia. Emma's voice was small, hesitant. Please don't hate me. Olivia took a deep breath, keeping her voice cool. I don't hate you, Emma. That was true. Emma was young and naive, believing in the fantasy David had fed her. She had no idea what she had just walked into. David said you told him to take care of me, Emma said, her voice cracking. Does that mean you forgive us? Forgive? Olivia almost laughed. David had manipulated Emma, convinced her he was her savior, a man who had her best interests at heart. But what Emma didn't realize was that David was a user. He wasn't with her because he loved her. He was with her because she was convenient. And soon enough she would see the truth. Of course, Olivia said smoothly. You'll see soon enough. There was a pause on the other end. Then Emma hesitated before saying, I wanted to tell you before you heard it from someone else. David wants to move in with me. But my apartment is so small, and he was thinking maybe we could. There it was. David hadn't planned on leaving his home. He had assumed Olivia would let him back in under the pretense of supporting Emma. He never expected to lose everything. I'm afraid that won't be possible, Olivia said. A pause. What do you mean? Emma asked, her voice laced with confusion. Olivia glanced at the freshly installed locks and smiled. I mean, David doesn't live here anymore. Silence. Then in the background, Olivia heard Emma whisper, David. What does she mean? She pictured David's face falling, his expression twisting as the realization hit him. He had assumed Olivia would be the one left scrambling. Instead, he was the one without a home, without access to the money, without control. That was when Olivia hung up. A few hours later, David finally texted. What the hell, Olivia? You changed the locks? She let him wait. Minutes later, another message arrived. You can't do this. I need to come back and get my stuff. You're being dramatic. My stuff. Not our stuff. His stuff. The sheer audacity almost made her laugh. She typed back, Oh, I didn't change the locks. The owner of the house did. It took less than 30 seconds for his next call to come in. She let it go to voicemail. Then another text. You're making this harder than it needs to be. She smirked. No, David. I'm making it exactly as hard as it needs to be. That evening, as she tucked Noah into bed, he looked up at her, curiosity in his big brown eyes. Is Daddy coming home? She knelt beside him, brushing a strand of hair from his face. Daddy is staying with Aunt Emma for a little while. His brows furrowed. Why? How much do you tell a 12-year-old? How do you explain betrayal in a way that doesn't break his heart? Olivia kissed his forehead. Sometimes grown-ups make bad choices, she said softly, and when they do, they have to live with the consequences. Noah thought about that for a moment, then nodded. Okay. One word. 1,000 meanings. Later that night, Olivia received one final message from David. We need to talk. She stared at the screen for a long moment, then she turned off her phone. For the first time in her entire marriage, she wasn't the one waiting for him. David needed her now. And she wasn't playing by his rules anymore. This was just the beginning. The morning air was crisp as Olivia stepped onto her front porch, sipping her coffee, the calm before the storm. She knew it was only a matter of time before David fully grasped what had happened. At exactly 8:12 a.m., the first call came in. She let it ring. Then came the first text. You froze the accounts? How could you? Emma and I need that money. Olivia exhaled slowly, placing her coffee cup down as she smirked. He was panicking. David had always believed he could outsmart her, that she would never stand up for herself. He had assumed that even after his betrayal, she would still be there, waiting for him. But David was about to learn the hard way that Olivia wasn't a woman who would be left behind. Another call. Another text. You can't just leave us with nothing. Emma is pregnant, Olivia. We're starting a family. We. Olivia rolled her eyes. David had walked away from his family without hesitation, but now he wanted sympathy for creating a new one? He wasn't asking for help. He was demanding a bailout. By 10 a.m., her lawyer called. David's attorney reached out, she said, her voice laced with amusement. He's claiming you acted maliciously by freezing the accounts. Olivia smirked. Did you tell them I did it legally? Of course. And that the house was never his. I bet that was a fun surprise for him. Oh, he's realizing a lot of things? Her lawyer said with a chuckle. Also, there's something else. Olivia leaned back, intrigued. Go on. He tried to withdraw money from his personal accounts this morning. And his credit cards are maxed out and his checking account is in overdraft. Olivia let out a low whistle. David had always spent money like it would never run out. Expensive watches, boys' trips to Vegas, flashy gifts. He was so sure of himself, so reckless. Now he had nothing left. And she wasn't going to save him. At noon, her phone rang again. This time, it was Emma. She debated ignoring it, but at the last second, pressed answer. Sophia, please. Emma's voice was shaky. Talk to him. Olivia stayed silent. He didn't know you were going to do all of this, Emma continued, voice breaking. He thought... Olivia cut in, her voice sharp. He thought what, Emma? That he could cheat, steal, and still walk away with my home, my money, my life? Emma sniffled. We're having a baby, Olivia, she whispered. And I don't know what to do. We don't even have a place to stay. My lease is up next month, and David... He said. Emma trailed off, her breath hitching. Olivia could hear it now, the fear creeping in. David had promised her the dream, security, a family, a home. But David had no home to give her. James said what? Olivia prompted. Silence. She already knew. David had lied to her too. Emma had believed she was special, that she was the exception, but she was just the next in line. You're going to have to figure it out, Emma, Olivia said, her tone calm, unwavering, just like I did. And then she hung up. At 3 p.m., David finally showed up at her doorstep. The banging was loud, impatient. Sophia, open up. She let him knock. Then, after a minute, she opened the door just enough to look at him, but not enough to let him in. He looked disheveled, his hair messy, his face tired. He was not the arrogant man who had smugly texted her days ago. Now he was desperate. You need to let me in, he demanded. No, David. His jaw clenched. Sophia, don't do this. Emma and I are about to have a baby. You're punishing us for something that just happened. Olivia raised an eyebrow. You think this is punishment? She let out a small laugh. No, David, this is simply you getting exactly what you deserve. His expression twisted in frustration. I knew you'd be vindictive. She smirked. You thought I'd be weak. You can't just throw me out like trash, he snapped. I was your husband for 14 years. And you threw that away, she said calmly, for a fling with my sister. David flinched. You made your choices, David, she continued, and now you get to live with them, just like Emma does. She started to close the door, but his next words stopped her. I'll fight for the house, he threatened. I have rights. Olivia smiled. You don't have a leg to stand on, David. The house was mine before we ever got married. It's not a marital asset, and thanks to the divorce papers I already filed, the courts will see that you abandoned our marriage for another woman. His face paled. He hadn't expected her to act so quickly. But go ahead, Olivia continued, tilting her head mockingly. Hire a lawyer. See how that works out for you. Then she gave him a sweet, mocking smile. Oh, wait. You can't afford one, can you? His nostrils flared. His fists clenched at his sides. She could see it, the moment he realized that he had played himself. You're going to regret this, he muttered. She shrugged. Doubt it. And with that, she shut the door in his face. That night, Olivia poured herself another glass of wine and watched the sunset from her porch. Her lawyer had officially finalized the divorce paperwork. David had nothing. No home, no money, no credit, no safety net. He had lost everything, and she had gained peace. At exactly 8 p.m., her phone buzzed one last time. A voicemail from David. She didn't listen to it. Instead, she deleted it. Because for the first time in 14 years, David wasn't her problem anymore, and she had never felt stronger. The world outside was moving as usual. Cars passing by, neighbors walking their dogs, the smell of fresh coffee drifting in from the kitchen. But inside Olivia's home, things had fundamentally shifted. She had never felt this calm before. David was unraveling, and she was watching it happen in real time. At exactly 7:30 a.m., her lawyer called. "You're not going to believe this," she said, barely holding back a laugh. Olivia took a sip of her coffee. "Try me. David is being evicted." She nearly choked on her drink. "From where?" "Emma's apartment," her lawyer clarified. "Apparently, the lease was only in her name, and because she hasn't been able to keep up with the rent, the landlord served them an eviction notice last night." Olivia let out a low whistle. "So they're both homeless?" "Looks like it. David must have assumed he could live off of you forever. He clearly wasn't planning on supporting Emma." Olivia shook her head. He had abandoned his home, his family, and his entire life for her sister, only to find himself with nothing. It was almost poetic. By 9 a.m., an unknown number called her phone. She answered, already suspecting who it was. Sure enough, David's voice came through the speaker. "You had no right to do this to me," he snapped. Olivia smirked. "Do what, David? Leave you to deal with the mess you created? You froze the accounts, took the house, and left me with nothing." He spat. "I don't even have a place to sleep tonight. Do you even care?" She rolled her eyes. "David, I stopped caring the moment you packed your bags and ran off with my sister." He let out a bitter laugh. "You act like I planned for this to happen." "Didn't you?" she challenged. "You thought you could cheat, steal, and destroy our marriage without consequences." He was silent. "Well, guess what?" Olivia continued, her voice icy cold. "You don't get to play the victim now." David exhaled sharply. "Sophia, listen," he pleaded. She's not what I thought she was. She's immature. She doesn't understand how hard life is." Olivia smirked. So it had finally happened. David had realized that Emma wasn't some fantasy escape. She was a young, naive woman who had no idea what she was getting into. "She's pregnant, David," Olivia reminded him. "This is what you wanted, remember?" He groaned. "She wants me to fix everything, like I have some kind of magic wand. She doesn't get it. We have no money, no home, no future." Olivia let the silence stretch before delivering the final blow. "And whose fault is that?" He didn't answer. She smiled. "You know what's funny, David?" she said, her voice almost amused. "You thought Emma was an upgrade. You thought she was better than me, more exciting, younger, easier. But the moment things got tough, she turned to you to fix it." She let that hang in the air. "And guess what?" She took a deep breath, letting him sit with his failure before she whispered, "You were never the kind of man who could fix anything." His breath hitched. "Sophia, please," he begged. "Just let me come back. Just for a little while. I need time to figure things out." She laughed out loud. "You seriously think I'd let you step foot in my house again?" David hesitated. "Sophia, don't do this. You're not like this." Olivia smirked. "You never really knew me, David." And then she hung up. By noon, Olivia received a text from Emma. "I don't know what to do." David left. He just walked out. He said he needed space to think. Olivia stared at the message. So David had abandoned her too. It was only a matter of time. David never wanted responsibility, not for Olivia, not for their son, and certainly not for a pregnant 25-year-old with no money. She let the text sit there for a moment. Then she typed her response. "Now you know what it feels like." And she left it at that. At 6 p.m., Olivia sat at her kitchen table, sipping a well-deserved glass of wine. Her lawyer had finalized the divorce terms. David had nothing. No house, no money, no credit, no safety net. He had lost everything. And she had gained peace. At exactly 8 p.m., her phone buzzed one last time. A voicemail from David. She didn't listen to it. Instead, she deleted it. Because for the first time in 14 years, David wasn't her problem anymore. And she had never felt stronger. The days passed in quiet victory. Olivia had expected relief, but what she hadn't anticipated was the absolute peace that settled over her life. David had been the storm. always bringing chaos. Now with him gone, everything felt lighter. 3 weeks had passed since his final plea, and she hadn't heard from him since. But she knew. She knew he was struggling. At 10 a.m., Olivia walked into her boutique, the place David had once mocked as her little hobby. Sales were better than ever. In fact, she was already looking at locations for a second store. The real success had come when she stopped shrinking herself to accommodate a man who had never deserved her. By noon, her phone buzzed with a text from her lawyer. Just a heads up, David filed an appeal to revisit the financial settlement. Judge dismissed it immediately. He was also ordered to pay court costs. Olivia smirked. Even in his downfall, he was still trying to manipulate his way back. But this time, no one was coming to save him. That afternoon, Olivia was finalizing new business plans when she saw a familiar name pop up on her phone. Emma. She debated ignoring it, but again, curiosity won. She answered with a simple, "Yes." Emma hesitated. "I just wanted to say, you were right." Olivia leaned back in her chair. "About what?" Emma exhaled. "About David." "Ah, he left," Emma admitted. "He told me he wasn't ready to be a father, that I should have been smarter about birth control." Olivia clenched her jaw. Of course he did. David had spent years blaming her for everything, and now Emma was his new scapegoat. Emma sniffled. "I thought he loved me, but he just used me, and now I'm pregnant, alone, and I don't even know how I'm going to afford this baby." Olivia exhaled slowly, choosing her words carefully. "I feel sorry for you, Emma," she said truthfully. "But I don't owe you anything." Emma let out a shaky breath. "I know. I just needed you to know I regret everything. I ruined my relationship with you for a man who never even cared about me." Silence stretched between them. Finally, Olivia said, "I hope you learned from this." And then she hung up. Emma would figure it out, just like Olivia had. At 6 p.m., Olivia was getting ready to close the boutique when her assistant walked in, looking amused. "You're not going to believe who I just saw outside," she said. Olivia raised an eyebrow. "Who?" "David." Olivia blinked. "He came here?" Her assistant nodded. "He was standing across the street, just staring at the store." She hesitated before adding, "He looked terrible, Olivia, like unshaven, wearing the same clothes for days, completely lost." Olivia glanced out the window, but he was already gone. Still, she knew what this was. David was realizing what he had thrown away. The comfortable life, the stability, the success, the woman who had stood by him for over a decade. And now he had nothing. That night, Olivia poured herself a glass of wine and sat on the couch, staring at her phone. David's number was still blocked, and she had no desire to change that. Instead, she opened her laptop, browsing locations for her second boutique. She smiled to herself. This was what moving on looked like. Not revenge, not anger, not waiting for an apology that would never come. Just building something better. Because while David was stuck in the ruins of his past, Olivia was thriving in her future, and she never looked back. It had been 3 months since David walked out of Olivia's life. She expected the peace. She didn't expect the satisfaction. Her life flourished in his absence. Her boutique expanded, sales were at an all-time high, and she had just signed the lease for her second location. Something David had always said was too ambitious. Funny how things worked out. Meanwhile, David was spiraling. She didn't have to search for updates. They found her. Mutual acquaintances whispered about how he was couch surfing, borrowing money he could never repay, burning through whatever patience his friends had left. His credit was destroyed, his bank accounts empty, and his reputation in ruins. The man who had once thought he was untouchable was now completely powerless. At 9 a.m., Olivia sat in her office, reviewing the latest business proposal, when her assistant poked her head in. "There's someone outside asking for you," she said hesitantly. Olivia glanced up. "Who?" Her assistant's lips pressed together. "David." A slow smile spread across Olivia's lips. She had been waiting for this moment. She stepped outside, the warm morning sun casting a golden glow on the sidewalk. And there he was. David stood across the street, hands shoved in his pockets, looking like a shadow of the man he used to be. His clothes were wrinkled, his face unshaven, and his once arrogant expression was now filled with desperation. Olivia walked toward him, calm, collected, victorious. He lifted his head. "Olivia," he exhaled, almost relieved. She tilted her head, waiting. "Can we talk?" She crossed her arms. "Talk about what, David?" his jaw clenched as if swallowing his pride was physically painful. I need help. Ah, there it was. She had expected apologies. She had expected excuses. But in the end, David was still David. It was never about regret, only desperation. Olivia let out a slow breath. I helped you for 14 years, David, and you repaid me by throwing it all away. He flinched. Olivia, please, he tried again. I made a mistake. She raised an eyebrow. A mistake? She repeated. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is burning dinner. You didn't make a mistake, David. You made a choice. His face tightened. I lost everything, he muttered, voice strained. She gave him a slow, satisfied nod. And whose fault is that? David had nothing to say, because they both knew the answer. She watched him, waiting for the next excuse, the next manipulation, the next lie. But instead, he just sighed. And for the first time in his miserable downfall, Olivia saw it. Acceptance. Not remorse, not guilt, just the realization that he had lost, and he was never getting it back. Olivia took a step back. This conversation is over, David. His desperation flared. Wait. She smiled, calm, indifferent, free. Goodbye, David. And then she turned and walked away, never looking back. At 5 p.m., Olivia sat on her balcony watching the sun dip below the skyline. The past few months had been a lesson in letting go, a lesson in choosing herself. David's betrayal had been the end of their story, but the beginning of hers. Her phone buzzed. A message from her lawyer. Divorce settlement is officially closed. You're free. She exhaled, setting her phone down. Free. What a beautiful word. With a slow smile, she lifted her wine glass. To new beginnings, to her future. To a life without David. And for the first time in 14 years, she had never been happier.